The Carter family moved into an old Victorian house on Hollow Hill. The house was a bargain, its price suspiciously low. Abigail, their curious teenage daughter, was thrilled. She had a fascination with the macabre and spent hours exploring the creaky halls and forgotten rooms. One day, while rummaging through the attic, she discovered a massive dust-covered portrait. It depicted a stern-looking woman in a black dress, her eyes sharp and unforgiving. Beneath the portrait, a brass plate read, "Margaret Blackwell, 1876. As Abigail stared at the painting, she could have sworn the woman's lips curled into a faint smile. Shrugging it off as a trick of her imagination, she decided to leave the portrait where it was. That night, strange noises began echoing through the house. Faint footsteps, the sound of distant sobbing, and, occasionally, a raspy whisper. Abigail's parents dismissed her concerns, blaming the old house for its creaks and groans. But Abigail couldn't shake the feeling that Margaret Blackwell's eyes were always on her. Over the next few weeks, the strange occurrences escalated. Doors slammed shut on their own, shadows moved against the light, and the temperature in the house plummeted at random moments. Abigail became obsessed with the portrait, visiting it daily, even speaking to it as though it were alive. One night, while researching the house's history at the local library, Abigail discovered an old newspaper clipping. It detailed the life of Margaret Blackwell, who was rumored to have been a witch. She had cursed the house after her death, vowing to haunt any family that dared to call it home. When Abigail returned home, the house felt different. The air was heavier and the whispers were louder. She climbed to the attic, determined to confront the painting. The portrait was no longer on the wall. It was lying on the floor, face down, as though it had been cast aside in anger. Abigail flipped it over and gasped. Margaret's face had changed. Her eyes were now blood red, and her mouth was twisted into a snarl. A voice echoed through the attic. "You should not have come here." The attic door slammed shut, trapping Abigail inside. Shadows coalesced into a figure, the ghostly form of Margaret Blackwell. She reached out to Abigail with clawed hands, her voice a mix of anger and sorrow. Abigail, shaking with fear, pleaded with Margaret. "What do you want from us?" The ghost's face softened, her red eyes dimming. "My soul is bound to this house by betrayal. Free me, and you shall be free as well." Desperate, Abigail asked how she could break the curse. Margaret gestured toward the portrait. "Burn it, and release me from this prison." Abigail hesitated. She felt a strange connection to the painting, as though part of her own essence was tied to it. But she knew she had no choice. Grabbing a nearby lantern, she set the canvas aflame. As the fire consumed the portrait, Margaret let out a mournful wail. The shadows dissolved and the attic filled with light. When the flames died down, the painting was gone, leaving only ashes behind. The house returned to silence, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. Abigail and her family moved out the next day, unable to stay in a place that had nearly consumed them. Years later, the house was demolished, but as the final wall crumbled, a worker uncovered something chilling. A new portrait, untouched by time, depicting Abigail. Her expression was serene, but her eyes burned a faint red.